other and the relationship that they have with our family. And it also taught me a bit about portfolio management and inheritance. But what was the most important part, the biggest impact these conferences had for me, was that for the first time, I truly felt like I was with my peers. And I was not alone in this. At school, of course, I did not talk about wealth. I was raised to be very modest, and modesty is an important part of my values. But it can be pretty lonely not knowing other next gens, and I felt like all of the expectations and the obligations that I had, I could not discuss with my peers, and it was a bit of a burden. Next Gen conferences and circles offered a safe space to have discussions about wealth and inheritance with peers. And not only did I no longer feel alone, but meeting other people in my shoes gave me confidence that I could manage the Next Gen role. I'm now a member of many next generation groups. Some have a specific focus on philanthropy or investing. I am the UK leader for Nexus, which is a global next generation network for next gens and also young leaders, social entrepreneurs, and investors. Earlier this year, I hosted the first Nexus Next Generation Forum in London, where me and a group of 30 next gens shared our personal stories and were guided by a professional facilitator through an open discussion around challenges that we face with our families. I'm also the moderator of a forum that meets monthly for the YPO Next Generation. At our forum, we frequently share our experiences and updates on our efforts with our families and discuss challenges such as creating and updating a family constitution, managing family expectations and the inherited roles, and also building our own identity within the family. It's in these confidential environments that I really feel next gens can open up and learn from each other's experiences. I'm also a member of the WISE Foundation's New Gen Council, and this is specifically focused on developing via family philanthropy. So at these meetings, the council members engage in a number of peer-to-peer learning exercises, and we use the co-development process to help us identify key issues and help solve problems that come up in our family's philanthropic structures. I found these networks extremely helpful, and they've also given me a good amount of confidence and insights to then approach my family with and help us in our transition to the next generation. A family business. It is often the case that the older generation of the family has a distinct vision for how the family legacy should be. And in my case, my parents would like me to work with them in the investment space. Now, my siblings have also had conversations with my parents about contributing to our family business. And my four siblings, and two of them are here in the front row, the two youngest. My four siblings and I, we all have very different interests, and we also have very strong personalities. So we decided we really need to set down some formal guidelines for the future. Last year, we all began to work with advisors and create more structure around the concept of next gens working in the family office. First, we are creating a constitution, and it's going to be rooted in our family values. Then we'll create a family board that's going to meet regularly. And by adding more structure to our family ambitions, we are hoping to create more space for the next generation to make our own decisions and agree on the criteria necessary for involvement. After all, we're all stakeholders in the family, and we all like what's best for the continuation of the legacy. The Constitution will cover areas such as values, supporting entrepreneurship, requirements to work in the investment office, and also family philanthropy. Well, it's really important that we make the Constitution flexible so that it can adapt to changes from generation to generation. I do have a lot of friends now who have family constitutions that are just being ignored because they were too strict and specific. They ended up imposing outdated views on the next generation. And, but without a constitution, there is a lack of clarity between family members about the expectations, and this can lead to big misunderstandings and falling outs. So the Constitution will not just provide guidelines, but it will give us a better understanding between the generations of our objectives, responsibilities, options, and it'll also provide us with more security. Family philanthropy. Well, philanthropy, as was mentioned in my introduction, is a very big part of our family history, and it is rooted in our values. My family has always taken an entrepreneurial approach to philanthropy, and they often start their own initiatives to support causes that they're passionate about. My father set up a foundation to support scientists in genetics and cancer research. And his father, before him, founded the Cancer Research Institute in New York. My mother founded an NGO called the Middle East Children's Institute that supports thousands of women and children, refugees in the Middle East. She also started the Women in Science talks here in Switzerland, and now they are founding the Swiss Cancer Center Foundation to support immunotherapy. We want to ensure that philanthropy remains an important part of our family for future generations, and we hope that it can be something that can naturally bring us together as a family. That's why we're working philanthropy into our family constitution. Now, I learned from my experience on the WISE New Gen Council that it is possible to unite the family under one philanthropic ambition. And that ambition can either be a cause or it can be a mode of giving. And this way, the family still has consensus on the approach to philanthropy and in that way they're doing it together. From my experience in the next generation networks, I have learned that next gens are starting to have somewhat of a different approach to philanthropy. It's become a lot more about giving time than money. We want to be hands-on, so providing a mixture of what I call the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. And it's not just about writing a check. We want philanthropy to be less about ego, and there's even more willingness to even consider giving anonymously. Last, there's a greater willingness to form partnerships and collaborate, and we want to have an impact and produce measurable results. Now I'll tell you a bit about my philanthropic ambition, which has been founding the My World Project. So the My World Project all began when I found myself, a 17-year-old girl from New York who was absolutely obsessed with photography, in the middle of the West Bank in a remote village, and I was taking pictures of children who had never seen an American teenager before. 9 years later, the My World Project has worked with children in the Middle East, in Cambodia, Costa Rica, Switzerland, New York, and Los Angeles. And next year, our project will be bringing cameras to Syrian refugee children in Jordan. So what is the My World Project? Well, it's a photography workshop for children in and out of conflict areas that teaches peaceful conflict resolution techniques and photography skills. It focuses on finding common values with one another while connecting children around the world. So back in 2006, I attended a workshop at a camp called Face to Face, Faith to Faith in upstate New York. And this camp brings together teenagers from conflict areas such as Palestine, Israel, South Africa, and Northern Ireland for the summer, and they learn peaceful conflict resolution techniques. And I learned from them that the first step in peaceful conflict resolution is listening to and trying to understand the other side's story and then finding commonalities with one another. The next year, it was 2007, and I was attending the inaugural ceremony for the first school for the Middle East Children's Institute in the West Bank. And I was there as the official photographer for the event, and I was taking pictures of all of the children while they were singing and dancing. And it was amazing. The children were absolutely obsessed with the camera, and they kept following me around. It was like a crowd of reverse paparazzi of children pointing to my camera, asking for me to take their picture. And I talked to the teachers, and the teachers said that many of them had never seen or used cameras before, and they were also wanted their picture taken so that it could be shown to people in the West. And I was so moved by this that I promised to come back and teach them photography. And then on my way back that evening, I came up with the first draft of the My World project, which combines skills learned from the face-to-face, faith-to-faith program with photography. So now I'll tell you what we do during the workshops. So it starts by working with the children, having them understand better what values are, and then we come up with a list together of what's most important to them, and the children identify what their values are. Then we distribute out the cameras, and I teach the children a bit of basic photography skills, and then they go off to take their pictures of the things that we discussed that they would like to show as part of their story to tell to children in distant countries. The next day I collect the cameras and I get the pictures developed, and we meet back for day 2 where the children make their photo collages, and they just choose a few of the photos to represent some of their core values. Then we set up like a gallery-style viewing of the children in different countries' photo collages and lead a discussion with the children about the similarities that they see and also explain the differences. And in this discussion, the children almost always say that they had a lot more in common than they originally thought, and that they do share a set of common values. And from this discussion, we draw the conclusions together that the children are all the same on the inside. So you can see how the My World project allows children to learn basic photography skills, understand core human values, and also understand the commonalities that they share with one another around the world. So these are just some of the children's projects that they've done. So you can see in this one, this child from Cambodia took pictures of his family, of his home, his pets, and I'm sure as I go through these, you can see the similarities if the photos are viewable enough. And this is a girl from Los Angeles who chose to take pictures. Again, you see family, pets, school. This is a little girl from the West Bank. See her family, friends, doing chores around the house. This is a boy from New York. And it was a bit funny. When I did the project in New York, I was working with kids who were from a much more well-off background than the children in conflict areas that I was working with. And in the beginning, when I asked them to bring in their to bring in photos, they brought some photos. They were taking pictures of things like their family's yacht, the Mercedes. And they could tell they didn't really understand what we meant by values. But after this discussion, they did start to get it. And when they made their photo collages, they used photos of sports, friends, family. And when I showed their collages to the children in the West Bank, they were able to say that yes, they they see a lot of similarities and did think that they had a lot in common with each other. And this is another one from Costa Rica. So just to conclude, you may be asking why art and photography in particular for this project. And to me, photography is the perfect medium to tell stories across borders because it overcomes language barriers and cultural barriers. Art is an expression of passion. It's a mode of communication to tell stories, to express feelings, and connect with other people. And my experience with art is feeling the artist's creation, relating it to my own existence, and finding out how the art speaks to me. So by embracing the emotions in art, it makes me remember when I felt those emotions in my life. And this is why I believe that art can bring us together. It can make stories relatable, and it bridges distant people together. And that's just, thank you very much. This is my contact information, and if you're interested in the project, the website, and our Facebook page. And I'd like to open it up for questions.
Yeah, let's have a big round of applause for Lorraine. I can tell your mother was